What if I told you there was an airplane so afraid of pilots that it was designed to stop you from hurting yourself? No stalls, no spins, no rudder pedals. Just hop in, steer it like a car, and supposedly go flying. This is the strange, well-intentioned, slightly condescending story of the Ercoupe, the airplane that tried to make flying foolproof and accidentally created one of aviation's weirdest legends. I'm Bill, and this is Buffalo Air Park. Let's dive in. Alright, let's set the scene. It's the late 1930s. Aviation is still very much in the Wild West phase. Tail draggers are ground looping all over the place, pilots are stalling and spinning into the ground with alarming regularity, and the accident reports are stacking up faster than the airplanes themselves. So the government, and a very few worried engineers, started asking a dangerous question. What if flying is just too hard for most people? What if we need an airplane for the everyman? Something so simple, so forgiving, that your grandmother could fly it to the grocery store and live to tell the story. The result was the ERCO Ercoupe, the airplane that tried so hard to be a car it literally forgot to include rudder pedals. But before we go to the department store airplanes and Mooney's identity crisis, we need to talk about the man behind this idea. His name was Fred Weick. Weick was an engineer at NACA, the organization that would eventually become NASA, and he was obsessed with one thing: safety. He wasn't interested in speed records or flashy aerobatics. He wanted airplanes that didn't kill people. One of his early experiments was a test aircraft called the W-1, and it featured something that sounds boring today, but was revolutionary back then: tricycle landing gear. Back in the 1930s, tail draggers ruled the skies, nose-overs were common, ground loops were expected, and directional control on landing was optimistic at best. Weick's nose wheel layout was designed to stop airplanes from flipping over if you sneezed on the brakes. Eventually, Weick moved to the Engineering and Research Corporation, ERCO, in Maryland, and in 1940 they released his ultimate safety experiment, the Ercoupe 415C. This wasn't just a new airplane. This was an entirely new philosophy of flying. First, Fred linked the ailerons and the rudders together, turned the yoke left, the airplane banks left, and yaws left automatically. Perfect coordination every time. Second, there was no rudder pedals on the floor, just a single brake pedal, exactly like a car. And then came the most radical idea of all. Fred physically limited the elevator travel to about 13 degrees upward. That meant you simply couldn't pull the nose high enough to stall the wing. You could yank the yoke all the way back. You could chop the power. You could do everything your flight instructor told you not to do, and the airplane refused to spin. The Civil Aeronautics Administration actually certified the Ercoupe as characteristically incapable of spinning. Instead of snapping over, it would settle into what pilots politely called a mush. Now, mush sounds gentle, comforting, almost cozy. In reality, it was anything but. In a full aft yoke mush, the Ercoupe descended like a drop sewer cover. If you did this close to the ground without adding power, you didn't spin in, you simply drove the landing gear straight through the wings. But hey, at least you didn't spin. Despite its quirks, and maybe because of them, the Ercoupe became the ultimate Sunday driver airplane. During the post-war aviation boom of 1946, ERCO was cranking out 34 of them a day. They marketed it so aggressively that you could literally buy one in the men's department at Macy's. Socks, ties, hey, an airplane. And here's a fun fact for your next hangar flying session. The Ercoupe was the first American airplane to perform a rocket-assisted takeoff. In 1941, the Army strapped rockets to one, lit a fuse, and launched Captain Homer Boucher into the air like a Roman candle. So yes, technically speaking, this cheerful little airplane is a distant ancestor of the space shuttle. But back on Earth, the Ercoupe's safety features created some unusual habits. Because there were no independent rudders, you couldn't slip the airplane in a crosswind. Instead, Ercoupe pilots were taught to land in a full crab. You flew sideways down final, pointed at the grass, slammed it onto the runway, and let the airplane's massive trailing beam landing gear straighten things out by sheer force of will. It terrified pilots trained in normal airplanes, but the gear was built like a tank. Sadly, the post-war aviation boom didn't last. By 1950, ERCO shut down production, but the Ercoupe refused to die. The design bounced from company to company, Fournet in the late 50s, then Elan in the mid-60s. And in a move that offended purists everywhere, rudder pedals were added because pilots felt emotionally uncomfortable without them. And this is where Mooney enters the story. In 1967, Mooney bought Elan. They wanted a trainer to compete with the Cessna 150, but they had a serious regulatory problem. The Ercoupe's legendary safety record was now a liability. If you trained in one, your pilot certificate came with a restriction. You were only allowed to fly planes incapable of spinning. Mooney needed students to learn spin recovery. So, in 1969, engineers took the innocent little Ercoupe, chopped off its iconic twin tails, and bolted on a single forward-swept tail that looked just like the ones on Mooney's fast, sleek M20s. They called it the M10 Cadet. It was pure Frankenstein. Ercoupe wings, Ercoupe fuselage, Mooney styling, sort of. And here's the secret. On real Moonies, the entire tail pivots for trim. On the M10, it was fake. A fixed stabilizer shaped to look Mooney-ish for branding purposes. Was it a success? Not even close. Mooney went bankrupt almost immediately after launching it. Only 59 M10 Cadets were ever built before production ended in 1970. Today, the M10 is a rare curiosity. But the original Ercoupe? That's the legend. Thanks to its low gross weight, early models qualify as a light sport aircraft. You can fly one without a medical certificate, windows down, elbow hanging out, steering through the skies without ever touching a rudder pedal. Was it safe? Mostly. Was it strange? Absolutely. It remains the only airplane that truly believed the biggest danger in aviation was the pilot. And that wraps up another tale from aviation's stranger side. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.